Okay, y'all, here we are back in the studio. Let's get warmed up. It's cold in the home of Sin City. Special guest hanging out in hot Atlanta. But if I remember right, it wasn't necessarily that warm there at this time of the year. But it's really, really, really nice to be back in the studio and have this opportunity to speak to this magnificent, awesome dude, gentleman, founder and CEO of Sada Services. Be the game changer. Influential speaker, business coach, entrepreneur, and author. Larry McClelland. You there, Larry?
Yes, I am.
Oh, what's going on? How you doing today?
Everything's good. And yourself?
Man, I'm fantastic. So let me, from a 1 to 5, how was that intro?
I would say a 5.
What? Oh, brother, that's so much love. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
So anyways, welcome to Kicking It with KJ, and I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me. This is my second phone interview that I've done, and coming out of Atlanta. So, hey, the listeners are out there. I kind of gave a little, I probably didn't even scratch the surface of who you are. And I know we're going to get into that, but if you would like to give the listeners a little, introduction from the Larry McClelland, Be the Game Changer, side of the house.
Well, as you said before, I'm Larry McClelland. I am a Mississippi-born native. And I grew up believing that values mean more than anything in the person's life. And with that being said, I went and joined the military. I did 24 years in the military, retired from the United States Army. And after retiring from the Army, I felt like I wasn't ready yet to hang the hat up with working. So I decided to build a business, Sada Services, LLC. This business is derived around my family's, I would say, motivation. And it involves with entertainment. I'm a father of 4, and I have 5 grandchildren. And that's about it. That's me in a nutshell.
Wow, man. Well, Larry, brother, that you have a big nutshell though. So, first, I want to give a shout out to Rico for putting us in touch. If I didn't do that, at least I don't want to be on the end. I consider myself family, Air Force family, and a deployed brother family, but I don't want to catch the thrashings if he's like, bruh, really? So,
okay. Yeah, oh yeah.
So let me throw one out there for Rico. But, I appreciate that. I'm a family guy too. Big family, got six of them out there. One, is just turned 8 months old. And I too serve. So first of all, thank you for your service. So is it top you was a first sergeant in the Army?
Yes.
And so, yeah, we call you top, and it was funny. I got to be immersed into the Army side of the house quite a few times. I was a Class 1 advisor for CJ Soda with the 3rd and 7th Special Forces Group. And I ran mortuary affairs for the 101st Infantry. So I love the way you guys do business, but man, I'm going to tell you, that's what you've done and what research I've done. And I'm looking at your page, and it's, man, you're intimidating. And I don't say that to many people. And it's not just cause the look, it's because, you just look super professional and like you're about business. And, I wonder, going back to your Army days, did you ever find like that was a barrier? Because, we have a large veteran audience, as well as people that are still active. And, us as guys and family people, sometimes I think our rank, position, or just our demeanor, that look of seriousness. Did you ever find that was a barrier while you were in the Army? And even as you transitioned to starting your business, how did that play out? I'm just curious, because I deal with that a lot, and I'm trying to manage through that.
Well, I would start back in the days when I was platoon sergeant And when I transitioned, became a first sergeant. When they look at the photo that normally would display on the chain of support and NCO channels, they would look at my picture and they would think that I'm a very mean type guy.
Yeah.
Because if unspoken, people sometimes view me as unapproachable. But when the group or the organization get a chance to know me, who I am, and the side of me, there's a few different sides, and it's all based off according to what is very important to get the mission accomplished. Now, what I mean when I say that is, if it requires a straightforward approach, then I can be that guy that's straightforward. And if it applies to being just to be a leader, to influence the organization to accomplish the mission, then I'm a hands-on person and very fun to get along with, as I would say myself, and others have witnessed to that. Now, I'm not a person that likes to mistreat anyone. I'm a person that likes to see people excel, to see people accomplish things, and to motivate and influence them in accomplishing that the best way I possibly can.
Be the game changer.
Now, as a first, yes. As a first sergeant, it is a responsibility. In the Army, E8 Army First Sergeant, it's a responsibility to teach, coach, mentor, and train the unit to accomplish its mission. I reflect upon that in almost everything in my life that I do. It goes from family relations all the way over to business perspectives. And I have a firm belief that if you treat everyone with the utmost respect, the outcome or the results that you get from them will always be the most that they can give you. And as a leader that has led many organizations across the globe, you got to be able to deal with people in multiple facets. Now that goes without speaking, because as you know, as a chief in the United States Air Force, you know when it comes to leadership and the challenges that come along with it.
Right.
And you also know about sometimes you got to be able to manage both sides of it. You got to tear them down, build them up, and at the same time you got to keep them motivated. Right.
What?
So, go ahead.
No, you said some stuff that, and I took notes. I wrote down gems and gold, and I feel like you touched on some of that. Like, first, when did Larry, NCO, businessman, entrepreneur, influencer, when did you realize in your life you had so much to give? I mean, because I was a young guy too, and I didn't necessarily know my self-worth. And I think that's a big thing going on in today's world, is people lack the ability to know their self-worth. And how often do you manage when you try to tell someone their value and worth? Do you see the resistance in it because they don't see what you see in them?
That's a real good question there, Kev. Me, Larry McClelland, I was raised by my parents, my grandparents, and my aunts and uncles on both sides of my mom and dad. The thing in Mississippi, being a Mississippi native, it comes with love. That's my firm belief. So throughout time, as I was progressing through the ranks of the United States Army, there were some times that those values came very handy for me, because I looked at it always like this. What I'm asking or what I'm influencing someone to do for the good of the mission could cost them their life. So I want them to know that I always have their best interest at hand, and to trust in me that I see a bigger picture than what they see, because I got the leadership side and I got the unit function side that I'm looking at. The soldier itself, him or herself, may just be looking at the function side, because they don't understand why we need to get to this certain point that I'm trying to influence us or motivate us to reach and attain. That same perspective played very well across the management of my business, because I deal with so many people on a regular basis. And in order for my entire mission in my business to operate smoothly and or to accomplish its milestones that I needed to accomplish, I got to be able to motivate them to work with me. Because if they don't work with me, it could be detrimental for any success that I'm looking for, any goal that I'm looking to achieve. Because people in society is very different than people in the military.
Oh, amen to that.
Yeah.
I learned that. I
Yeah.
learned that.
So when I go ahead.
No, please go ahead, Larry.
So when I transitioned from retired Army first sergeant to civilian civilian entrepreneur, I had a small awakening that I had to go back and retrain myself on. And I was always a person that liked to achieve goals. I like winning. That word WIN, I like to win.
Oh yeah.
But yeah. So in the military, being a first sergeant, people or soldiers, I would say, they had such a responsibility to adhere to my leadership. So once you got the right group of people in the military fashion, that wasn't hard because they're gonna do what the first sergeants they do. On both sides of the aisle, the officer and the NCO and the soldier, right?
Right.
So when I came out in the business world, it wasn't that easy because they have a right to say no. They have a right to agree. They have a right not to agree. And there's no consequences other than probably a failed business practice, right?
Right.
So what I did is I sought out this organization called Toastmasters International.
Okay.
And my main objective to get out of Toastmasters International was to be able to speak in a less aggressive manner with associates.
Mm.
And it helped me a lot. It helped me a very lot because I could portray the information because that's what I've been doing for my whole entire adult life.
Right.
Was military missions. But now that I'm out in the business world, dealing with everyday people that has the right to object and to right to support, I got to be able to speak in a less aggressive way.
Yeah. And I apologize. I want to jump in because you just you literally just hit a bullseye with something and something I struggled with. But I think it's important for me to foot stomp this with the listeners is I went through the same thing, and I'm only like maybe just going on 60 days retired after I did over 28 years. And
awesome, congratulations.
Oh, brother, man. I'm gonna tell you, someone asked me like, do you miss it? I'm like, no. I miss the people. But I don't. I think it's okay to say, no, I don't. I mean, I don't miss it like that. Yeah, I enjoyed it, but I went through the same thing you went, and I want the listeners who do a career to understand this pivot. And I kind of summarized like this is like I said, when I was the chief, I was obligated to lead, and I wanted to lead, but people under my charge were fairly obligated to follow, literally what you just said. Mm-hmm. And here I found myself trying to create a brand, and then I'm like, man, maybe I wasn't that valuable, because I'm looking for the followers, right? And I found myself getting frustrated, and I think we'll cover some of this because you've done something that I'm not sure I want to do, but I think I want to do. Because I think we are cut from the same cloth based on what we learned as military people. And through frustration, I had realized I needed to make a paradigm shift in what I was as a leader. And it kind of was like this, since your Army will use this, let's say you got that armor, are they a brigade? Let's say tanks, right? And you got the lead and they're following. And I think that that's what we came from. We were used to that boots on ground charge with followers. And what epiphany I had was I now have to be that leader who is a lighthouse, that maybe no ships will ever come near them rocks for months. Mm-hmm. But one day that cruise liner may have gotten lost in a storm with 3,000 passengers, and I'm there. And I commend you for what you're doing, because like you, me and you both didn't necessarily have to do that, because what I wrote down on my notes, and I'm gonna just I'll be the first to tell you, you're the first person I took notes for. So
Is that right?
well, because because I think it's important to be like, well, you know what, I don't, because me and you've never met each other, besides a phone call before this, and
Right.
and it I want you to understand that it's like I took it serious, and I value your time and appreciate your willingness to come on board. I think this is win-win, right? Let's be real with folks out there listening. Like, growth comes from both understanding there's mutual wins, not I win, you lose, or I gain subscribers, you don't get. I mean, it's a win-win scenario. But everything I read just in your business page, to me, read service, service, service. And you did not have to throw yourselves into this world of being rejected. Tell me I'm wrong that you didn't get rejected more than accepted as you built your empire and pushed through. And you didn't need to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely spot on.
And I think it takes courage to do that, because some of us could just, some of us with our retirements, we can live. I mean, I don't know how the cost of living is in Atlanta compared to where I'm at out here in the Vegas area, but we don't need to do this stuff. But our hearts and desires come from a place of love. So I wrote down love because I'm 100% on board with that. But when you said what you said about changing and the win, I had to change and I had to redefine what the win was.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate that, because what the listeners don't know is something I was struggling with, and whether you knew it or not, you helped validate that I made the right choice, because you're leading and I'm following in this particular situation. And a lot of the people that we want to help, they don't understand that we're putting the gems and gold in front of them, and it's up to them to trust it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I'm sorry I interrupted, but I thought that was really, really a hard thing that I struggled with as a person, because we take the rank off. We're just people. When we put the ranks on, they just see the rank first. But I wrote something down that I'm going to ask you what your thoughts on it. I wrote it down, and it's impromptu to you, and no doubt you will hit a grand slam. So you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, and I know you've dealt with this. So this is how I wrote. I said, most can't handle your light, so they turn their back on you, but they stay close enough because they need your light to warm their backs.
That's an awesome saying. And I agree with that 100%, Kev, because here's a story. I remember there was a time, I think I was in Germany, and I had a joint forces. I was a senior listed advisor for DLA Europe and Africa, right? The Defense Logistics Agency.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was the first ever senior listed advisor for the organization over there. And when I got there and arrived, the commander and the vice admiral that was in Fort Belvoir, Virginia, they gave me a strict mission to bring all 700 and something employees together and make them one unit. Not all of those 700 and something employees, probably 200 and something Joint Force Services members, and roughly 500 contract civilians and GSA civilians. Now, just to give you that little story, there's a lot of diverse backgrounds there.
Right.
So I had one mission to bring them together as a complete unit for both for Europe and Africa.
Right.
It wasn't an easy task, Kev, because a lot of those people were older than me. And me being the person that I am, I like to win. And I like to see people also reach their goals and achieve successes. So, like you said, we have to agree with each other. in order to get to a certain point as an organization or as a group. And people disagreeing sometimes, but they believe firmly in what they believe.
Mm.
And sometimes you gotta, at the same time, you trying to change their thought process, you gotta also influence them to agree with you, to work with you.
Yeah.
That relates to me. That feels relatable to what you asked me, because it was a plenty of times where people didn't agree with me, but yet in the end, when I got ready to leave Europe and Africa, and we were doing my farewell ceremony, to see so many people that were always disagreeing with me on certain matters, to see them standing there with tears in their eyes as they walked through the receiving line, to see tears in their eyes that I was leaving, it tells me, if you have something that's instilled inside of you to lead an organization, maintain that value and maintain your trait, because in the end, they're going to agree with you because they became winners themselves.
Yeah, through second and third order effects.
Yeah.
And it's funny because something you had said in there, and it made me write down absolutes. And the best leaders never think in absolutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure through, when you're consulting, I'm sure you have run into challenges or mediation, and you find the person who thinks in absolutes. And, in today's world, and not to get into politics, we can talk. No, we don't. I don't want to talk politics. I try to stay out of the political conversations. But if you talk politics, if you talk human behaviors, I try to tell people, and I promise you, as a leader, you will go in and say, well, listen, let's have an open mind. Let's be respectful. Let's not think in absolutes, because then we can get to a point of resolution. And
absolutely.
And we find in like today's world or climate of, this, like I said, not talking politics, but, I watch so many people just think in absolutes and just walk away from the table and label other people. I'm like, and you were a leader, I was like, who are you? I said, who are you leading and what are you leading? And, and so, I just appreciate that, because I wrote that down because, I don't know, am I going to get charged for all this subliminal advice I'm seeking for me? But I struggled with that, because I was like, man, I have peers that say they're they would say they were invested in the same content I'm pushing, right? Let's say I do something about, let's say like this, right? Leadership, veterans, entrepreneurship, all this stuff we're talking about. And I put the content out there, right? Mm-hmm. And me and you as veterans benefit from it being shared, right?
Absolutely.
And then it's like, I wish I could do a cricket sound, like, crickets. But I'm like, man, you sure share Dwayne Johnson, The Rock's crap. Then you share, Simon Sinek and Maxwell and Zig Ziglar. And I'm like, well, what about the little guy? And it just blew my mind, because it makes me want to question, is it that you feel threatened? It could be 1,000 different things. And I hate the unknown, because based on the little time we've talked, Larry, I guarantee you that whether we saw eye to eye on something, we'd respect one another if it was just tell me what's on your mind.
Yeah.
And too many folks out there, I'm not going to lie, there's times where I was like ready to quit. And then when I get put in touch with you via Rico, it's those little things that were like, no, you know what? Why? Why would I quit when I don't even know where the real win is? And so when you talk about change and wins, and then I wrote down absolutes, because it looks like you went through that too. The same people who would share leadership perspective about you can't think in absolutes, absolutely thought in absolutes when you were put in charge of trying to accomplish something.
Absolutely.
Man. So I'm going to tell you, I wrote a lot of stuff down. So And I'm gonna say I'm gonna save this one. This one is a little more fun. Success. How did your definition of success, steering away from the military life? Because I think both of us know that we learned a ton from the military that we didn't really realize till later in the years, because it was just a natural battle rhythm, a muscle,
Yep.
involuntary movement. Like, holy crap, I am a leader and I do have instincts. How many times do you think you redefined success as an entrepreneur? Like, did it just grow? Was it just Sada Services, like right out the gate, or did it start off with, a pebble, or, the little snowball, and it just evolved, over time?
Okay, Sada Services evolved over time. I started Sada Services in 2012 when I was deployed in Afghanistan. I have always had this entrepreneur spirit inside of me, and I went to college while I was in the military for business administration and business management.
Mm,
So I've always had that inside of me because it was something I wanted to do. But I didn't never think that I would be doing it in this capacity that I'm doing it in now. So in 2012, that deployment was getting worse and worse. Every time I go on, it was worse and worse. So I said in 2012, I said I'm shutting it down. I'm gonna close it out because if I make it back to Fort Hood, I'm gonna close it out.
okay.
So what I started doing was I started building a plan, and my very first company with Sada Service was actually a lawn care company. When I got back to Texas, I built the lawn care company, and it became quite well for me because I always had business, no matter what time of the year it was. Don't get too hot in Texas, too cold in Texas. So I always had business year round to do lawn care, right?
Got it.
And I I ran into a retired sergeant major that he also was doing. He had a entertainment business, and he offered me to join in with him because he saw how I had built it. We would meet sometimes, crossing, and he said, "Hey, man, I got this business. What I do is I do concerts." And he said, "I would like for you to join with me, man, and see if you like it. Maybe it's something you want to get into." So at the time, I said, "Why not?" Because I'm looking for things that I want to do after I leave the military. And my very first show I did with him, I invested $4,500 into the show, right? And I got 100% of my money back and about $5,000 more. So I left that one show, with right at $9,000, and I only put 4,500 in.
Hmm.
I was sold at that moment. I said, entertainment is going to be it.
Did you hesitate to say yes at first? Because I think that's some of the barriers that you probably may run into based as an entrepreneur, former veteran, is it's easy to be labeled as preying on folks when that's not true. You just want to see them eat too. And when it comes to people's money, they seem to always want to hesitate. And I understand that, but you took the leap of faith. So were you ever hesitant? And if you
Yeah,
were,
I had hesitant thoughts, but I looked at it like this. At the time, I was still active military. My bills was paid. I was just trying to set the conditions for the future.
mm,
And I had made myself I made up in my head that this $4,500 wasn't going to break me if I failed at it.
it was worth it.
So it was worth it. It was very much worth it because if I fast forward to today, that incident to make a decision at that particular time enabled me to grow a six-figure business in my spare time
While you were serving.
while I was serving.
Yeah. That's amazing. Kudos.
Yeah, thank you. So that being said, Kev, entrepreneurs have to take risks. And what I always do, and when I consult new startup business owners, I always tell them that when you make a decision to grow something that not yet have yet been discovered, you have to have it in the back of your mind that you may fail the first few times.
Yeah. So
So
did you fail? Did you find any failures?
along the way, there have been some endeavors that I have reached out to that didn't work. But I like building a plan that enables or embodies the opportunity for calculated risk. What I mean when I say that is there's no new adventure that I'm going to embark upon that I haven't yet set the conditions financially to do it. And what I mean by that is if say for instance I'm going to start a new let's say a new graphics company.
Okay.
I start out with a business plan. I start out with a checklist. And at the top of that checklist, not at the very top, but in the top percentile of the checklist, has to be financial stability to even embark on this endeavor. So I always set aside when I start new projects or new businesses, I set aside enough money to support me if I fail.
Got it.
And if I don't fail, then that money is then placed into an investment account. And that investment account will expand and grow my organization for something else, another venture.
Okay. And is this what you share? So you were the founder of the Side Hustle Seminar. Is this kind of some of the stuff, the gems that you would get out of that?
Absolutely. The Side Hustle Seminar is a 4 to 6 hour event. And what I do is everything that you need for a business startup, we teach you. We don't get to the certification part of it, but we introduce and make sure before you leave there, you have a firm understanding of what it takes to start a business today.
Mm.
And we call it the Side Hustle Seminar because we believe that every adult needs a side hustle. Because if you rely solely on your 9 to 5, things could happen. That business could go bottom up. And if that was your sole source of income and it goes bottom up, then you are in a very, very uncomfortable position when it comes to your lifestyle now that your main job has went bottom up.
Yeah.
But if you create a side hustle, and it needs to start with your passion. Whatever you're passionate about, educate yourself. YouTube, Udemy, all these type courses, you can educate yourself on this free.
Yeah.
And
Very
Google
true.
University will put you in the right position to launch almost anything.
Yeah, you got to put the work in, and what I really like about what you offer is that, because it's like I can watch YouTube how to fix my brakes, but I also am that learner who needs that not just the motivator, the accountability partner, but the I can see why you read it that way. But this is really the way you want to go, because I can read a book that says slam dunking like LeBron James, right? But
right.
I think my vertical is about 2 inches nowadays. So
say it ain't so.
Well, no, because I think that's the thing though. We've evolved into a world. I mean, even in the medical side of the house, Dr. Google, and you got doctors out there like, hey, don't do that. You're talking about your body. And even you as an entrepreneur, there's value in what you provide and do because you've learned the hard lessons. That's the one degree that people don't remember is the school of hard knocks. Me and you came up, playing in the streets, learning hands-on. In today's generation, it's all virtual and computers in your pocket. I mean, literally, I'm sitting here talking to you across the states on a roadcaster with 3 cell phones in front of me and and
Right.
and it's almost like it's like one of those movies where it's like, man, I didn't think we would ever get to this point, and it feels like we are. But I like that because you call it side hustle. And I can relate to that because I knew when I was coming up, I was told I should always try to have at least 3 streams of income.
I second that.
And the thing is when I retired, just like you did, and when I retired, I think you retired before it became like by law congressionally mandated to go through transition assistance and relocation assistance, and but even at that, you get like 1 week to exit a 20+ year career versus you was in basic training for 6, 7, 8 weeks, whatever the time was, to learn how to become a military member. And the bad part is I don't think people take it as serious as they should. But when I was going through that, I saw so many of our peers, our brothers, in arms. It was like the Hunger Games. Like I'm watching the panic and their resume writing, and I'm like, bro, why didn't you? I was like, well, let me rephrase. I didn't necessarily set myself up for the best transition 28 years prior, when my priority was buying gold in Turkey and having that herringbone necklace, right?
Right. and carpet and rugs in the Middle East.
Right. So, and it broke my heart. And I guess I'm kind of shifting a little bit to me, and that's why I felt a little bit inspired. So I was fortunate, though, to be accepted to what's called the Leadership Las Vegas. It's a chamber program here in Vegas, 31 years, and I was the first active duty chief accepted to it. And it opened a lot of windows.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. It's, man, I don't know how you are. I struggle accepting congrats, still. I think it's that weird, we serve. And but Larry, thank you. But, here I am looking at everybody else like, man, they're like, I need to get a job. They're struggling to write on their resumes and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, wow, so do I just ride off into the sunset with my pension and my new job? And I felt like my heart said, that's not what it's about. That's not why, if you're a God-fearing man like I am, and I think you being from Mississippi, that's probably an absolute yes. Am I wrong?
No, Kev. I tell you, I experienced the same thing. I just retired in 2016, August 2016. Now, prior to that, I would see service members stressing when it's time to get out because they not yet have made a plan. And if anyone is out there listening and used to be in my unit, they know about the transition plan that I used to almost force them to go through. And I would tell them that every body person, not military, not civilian, I'm just saying person in general, everybody person need a 5 to 10 year goal that has 3 echelons of what if. And the first echelon would be what they want to do in the next, what they current path, what they want to do in the next 5 years. The second is what is required to keep their family on pace for the next 5 years. And then the third tier of that is what happens if those 2 plans are distracted or disrupted in any kind of way. And this is just a plan, Kev. And the leaders of those soldiers getting ready to transition are required to have a conversation with those people, those service members.
Right.
A lot of times it don't happen because of the high intensity of the mission or the unit daily organization unit. Those things don't happen because it's just not enough time.
Yeah.
But every service member should make time themselves for their future. So a transition. Now, when I got out, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't looking for a job because I had created a job before I got out.
Right.
Right. And I would always take time doing unit training stand down days to tell those that are under my charge make a plan for yourself. And if you have a family, make a plan for you and your family. Because this job as a service member is not going to last forever unless you die on active duty. So that means you got to plan for a lifestyle after the military.
So like you're yet to accept my Facebook friend request, so I can't stalk you quite yet. And I don't know how you actively use it, but do you find yourself on the platforms that you do use with, if you're still associated with some of those folks, have you seen any of them? Like it's unfortunate, but it's like, man, I told you, bruh, you know, like I told you, you know, like, cause COVID, like no one planned for that. And that, like, that's a whole new monster, right? Based on what you're talking about. You have that 5 to 10 year plan, and imagine the people like me who retired in 2020. You know, and I know, like, one of the things that I'm just going to go on a limb and just make an assumption that, you know, there's a saying like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Right.
Unless you drown it.
You have no choice then, right?
Right.
Right.
I actually learned that saying by going with one of my Leadership Las Vegas. He's the CEO of Shine a Light, where they go and try to pull out the addicts and folks who live in the sewers. There's people who live underground in Las Vegas. And a lot of them are talented. And it actually was written on the wall. You can lead a horse to water. You can't force it to drink. And then the caveat, unless you drown it. And I was like, yeah, good point. It definitely drank the water then. But sometimes, you know, like with what you do, the emotional intelligence that has to come with the ability to know that you see someone's patterns and behaviors are setting them on a course that is, I don't want to say self-destructive, but definitely not beneficial to them and their family. And I wouldn't doubt that you wouldn't just put a plug in there, be like, hey man, you know, like come holler at your boy or come talk to me. And they blow it off, and then you're sitting there seeing them potentially struggle now, and you're like, you know, like, you know, I feel like I got resistance. Like I did an interview, and it was like, you know, they really honestly at first they just labeled me as like, oh, you just still wanted attention. And I said, I didn't want $10,000 out of my own pocket worth of attention. I said, trust me, I could have did a lot of things for free without investing in this. And then when they heard the content, they're like, oh, wow, you really just trying to help folks out. And I think that's the beauty of having you on as a vet, entrepreneur, a business coach, influential speaker. But I don't think people understand the amount of rejection that comes with that when you're like, come on, I'm telling you, like your foot stomping, you know. And how do you manage through that? Because one of the things I wrote down was encouragement. Because these are all the tools that will come with leaders who are like us. Like I'm just gonna say it. Like if people are like, so what's your superpower, Kevin? I'm like, I'm a people person. I connect with people. And some listen, some don't.
Yes.
Some are. Some pretend they're not. Others are capitalizing off of my vibe, which is okay too. But how do you encourage people today who potentially didn't follow that 5 to 10 year plan and push them in that right direction? Because no doubt when you approach people, do you think the first thing that comes to their mind is like, oh, you know, you're just trying to make money off of me? And I absolutely disagree with that. So I'm going to tell you, I don't subscribe to that, because I believe everybody's got to make a living. But genuinely 90% of your drive is like, I really want to help you and get you where you want to be. And oh, by the way, you're your own boss.
Oh, yeah. Well, I would say this. There are still service members out there that's active and some retired that still send me an email, a phone call, a text message, asking and inquiring on that support and that opinion or that consultation. Not saying I'm charging them for it, because we're brothers and sisters of arms. So I'm not going to charge them unless it's a business endeavor. But when it just comes to the basic, okay, hey Top, I need your thoughts on this, or I need help with this, etc. I don't mind giving help, you know. And when I approach a business deal, I don't go out looking for the business deal
Yeah.
unless it's something that I'm building. If it's something I'm building, yes, I'm forward thinking. But if it's something that I'm a service that I'm providing to someone, a consultation or a business plan or speaking engagement, etc., I wait and let the offer come to me because I my my thought process about that, Kev, is that if they come to me, they want it.
Yeah.
If I go to them sales pitching or giving them a pitch to try to, gain some more business deals, etc. with them, then it may be that they're not totally interested or they're not interested at all. Because my time, I have to manage it so well in order to make everything happen and give attention to it all. If they come to me, then they seeking it out. To me, that means a whole lot. That's why I said it twice. It means a lot if they come to me.
Right.
Because if they come to me, then I could give them what I have to offer, and I can also analyze how it's soaking into them, and that will give me a general assessment of how much time and effort I need to place into it. Because again, time management is very, very critical because we only get 24 hours in a day, right?
Right. Well, it's funny that you said that is in the world of entrepreneurship. It never really hit me until I was, what's the word I'm looking at? Until I went out into the world outside them gates, and time is everything in business. I mean, that equates to either lost or gained revenue versus, the military. Our time is important and we're 24/7, but it's not like, for your soldiers, you're like, well, I can't give you a pay raise, but I'll give you some time, I'll give you a day off or something like that.
Right.
And for you, your time is valuable because, at the end of the day, you're like, you say to have a family just like I do. And it's like, we don't learn in the military to monetize time as well as an entrepreneur does, in my opinion.
I'll tell you,
yeah,
my family and my closest friends, closest associates, they sometimes get aggravated about time. Yes.
I think we lost you, man. That's the first drop call.
Oh my. I had my hands up talking at the time, because I was about to get into that conversation, and the phone went out. So again, like I was saying, Kev, some of my closest people get upset about time with me. Time management, because I got so many things going on that I can't spend a whole lot of time if I don't see the wheels moving forward. If the wheels are spinning or going backwards, I'm gonna have to switch gears.
Yeah, true.
And sometimes when I switch those gears, they may not be happy with me.
Oh.
But see, that's one of the things that I got to continue to work on. Because if I classify them as closest to me, and they're not happy with the time that I'm giving them, right?
Yeah,
that's a problem, Ken.
It is, and some of the things that I was learning, because we're talking about time, and what I love about having my own studio is time is whatever we want it to be, versus when I was using someone else's studio. But I look at reciprocity, and I got a fabulous boss. And I was talking to him about some of my frustrations about this, and I was like, I've given money, I've given time, and it bothers me that there's no reciprocation. And he was like, well, and he'd went to school and he had this Harvard professor, and he was like, when they say thank you, what do you say in response? And if you've never heard this, then maybe I gave you one little pebble to take forward, because it was a mind-blowing thing for me. And I said, I usually say no problem. I don't know if that's something Larry would say, but that's what Kevin James would say. And he goes, that's your problem. He was like, is it really not a problem? I was like, no. I was like, I take time from my wife. I take time from my kids. I take time from other priorities. He goes, exactly. He goes, the right response from his professor, and I use it now, is, I know you'd do it for me. And then you watch their nonverbals. Because most times they have zero intent to reciprocate. And I know that's loaded, because maybe it's not the way
I'm tracking.
Oh,
I see what you're saying.
I think there's, and I went into this little area of negativity for about 3 weeks. I was managing my PTSD, some identity crisis stuff. Do I want to do this podcasting stuff? And I had told someone, I said, there's fakers, takers, and promise breakers. That's what I've learned doing this. And I think it's so not cool, but I think you might be like, yeah, but I can feel you. And I don't think anyone else can if they don't start this.
I'm about to say, it's very much true.
And I had another leader who was like, well, but it could also be, and this is where I think leaders like us may devalue ourselves, is another leader of mine. He said, but what if they just don't have the capacity that you have? What if they just
That's
can't?
A good point.
What if they just can't do what you can do? That's another attribute of what we learned from the military. And this is the thing, is I don't think we're valued as much on the outside for what we bring. I going out on a limb, and I don't think it's malicious. I think people want to hire vets, so they say that they we take care of vets. I was like, but you want the work ethic for low pay.
Right.
That's what you really want. And it's one of those gray areas where I can't criticize you and be like, well, you don't support the vets. Cause I had a friend who, I was like, it was about the, any of the casinos or anything like that, it's like, well, we take care of the vets. I'm like, with breadcrumbs, I'm like, that's how you say thanks for combat exposure and stuff like that, and I don't know, that's just my opinion. But when you mentioned time, he had mentioned that, about time. He was like, if time is important to you, which it should be, which remember I said, we're not taught to really value or monetize our time. Then I need to be willing to tell people like, oh, it's like saying it wasn't a problem, but understand what I compromised and sacrificed to help you. And I was like, man, even the Godfather said that. Don Corleone said that when he said, one day I'll call upon you and you will be there for me, when he did that, the funeral director a favor. And so, I just went back to that story. So I got one more thing that's a little more fun, and then you absolutely can have the floor for anything that I may have not covered or missed. And this ain't got to be the only interview we ever do. You're always welcome to come back. I really enjoy the dialogue, right? So you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, man. So I think the listeners deserve to know, and we're going to do some random trivia for on Larry. All right. So when I say, what do you have? What do you have? What do you have? What are we talking about?
When you say, what do you have? What do you have?
Right. This is an iconic eating establishment in the Atlanta area. I think they support Georgia Tech, and they take up like 2 city blocks.
Well, I think you're talking about Varsity. Varsity is a restaurant that's right up over, right across the street from Georgia Tech Gymnasium.
Yes, sir. Okay. If I had a ding, 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 or if I didn't have a copyright infringement for playing a little Jermaine Dupri, Welcome to Atlanta, I would have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I was doing a little research about that because I actually had tried Varsity when I was going through Atlanta. Atlanta is a beast of an airport.
Yes. Hartfield.
And I was going through the lingo where what do you have was the way the waitresses were like, look, let's keep moving, and it's funny because so culturally in Mississippi, and that's the South, is probably I don't know if it's very similar to so I've never been to Mississippi, but I've been to Alabama and Georgia, and I was stationed in Virginia. And I'm a California guy, and the speeds blew my mind, and the customs and so when I was in the South, I remember I was standing in line. So this is a real story. I was at NCO Academy at no, I wasn't, Senior NCO Academy in Maxwell, Montgomery, Alabama.
Right.
And I go to a fast food establishment, and so I'm expecting it to be fast to my West Coast California speed. So I walk in, and she was such a sweet. And first of all, I love any sweet tea that requires ice to make it not be so like syrupy. Probably why I have like a 40 waist. But I remember walking in, and she was just like, it was like she was the only lady there, and she was like, "Hold on, baby, I'll be with you in a second." And I was like, "Okay." And this is no lie, like 15 minutes later, I was still standing there waiting to order. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be late for class. I'm either not eating or I'm waiting. And I made a command decision. I was like, I'll wait 30 damn minutes to get my food and be late for class because I want to see how this plays out. But, the hospitality I've really always loved about the South. And, I mean, as an entrepreneur, you've kind of stayed in that area down in the South, whether by choice or not. But culturally, I'm tying that into the whole varsity to where some people may find that like rude or unprofessional, but it's not. It's the culture of the South, right? To move a little bit slower. Everybody's kind of like baby and loving. And is that a true thing? Am I falling into a fallacy or?
Well, it is a true thing. Southern hospitality is, I feel, just what it is. It's the hospitality of let's take time and give that customer service to each individual and love and emotion. A lot of Southerners, and I know by way of Mississippi, they try to relate, the emotional type, love of the next human being into everything they do. That's why they say soul food cooking comes from the heart. Because they want to imply and relate that emotional side of it to it. And the South is very, very well known for that. But myself, is just as you said, when I went around to other places throughout the world, it was an eye opener that this particular part of the world don't operate the way Mississippi do.
No.
And for me, I chose to rest my hat after retiring in the southern part of the United States because one is closer to my family, my mom and dad family is close to both sides. Two is because I like the relaxation of what the South give us. And it makes me feel like I could operate and move freely as opposed to being in a fast paced, New York, area or somewhere like that. I wouldn't be able to do that because I'm a Southern guy that has those values instilled inside of me.
A Southern gentleman.
There you go.
Southern
Absolutely.
gentleman. I'd be like, look at this tall glass of water. Right. Like, so I'm trying to remember some of my, my exposures around my travels and relate to some of those thoughts. And I get it. Actually, when I moved here, I fell in love because you can just be normal guy where I live. And 5 hours later, I can be Gucci'd out, pretending to be someone on the strip, because everybody's dressed up and partying, and then go back home. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm a very much Walmart shorts and shirts guy.
And see, you being able to transition like that, it solely comes from your past 2 decades plus of military service, because you can go anywhere and you can fit right in because you know how to adapt to the different different lifestyles. And that, again, Kev, that's one of the things that like you said, we have. And it's been with us so long that is not rated enough to get those extra push on those positions and jobs that you spoke about earlier.
Yeah. Well, I coined this thing, and you absolutely can use it. I really did. I tried to look it up and see if it's ever been used, and it's not. So I consider myself the pioneer of it. What that means, I have no idea. Probably nothing. But I call
No.
what were you gonna say? I call it the LMV, and hopefully you can relate to it. LMV stands for your leadership market value, and I think as a leader today and in present serving, where our stock's not always rising.
Right.
And so, because of what you do, I would encourage anyone who is listening, who follows you on your own platforms or me on this platforms or this collaboration, to never be afraid to do some due diligence and research and raise your leadership market value, because it's continual growth.
Awesome. That is awesome.
But yeah, so brother, man, it was an honor to have you on. Anything you want to pass on to the listeners before I take us to a close?
Yes. Again, I want to take the opportunity to market my business, and I can be reached on Instagram at larry_mcclelland. Also on Twitter, and also on Facebook, just Larry McClelland on Facebook. My website that can reach all my different endeavors is Sada, SADA services.com. Again, that's Sada services.com. And also, the 26th of January, I'll be releasing a book called Monopolize Your Passion. And that book will be available, of course, on my website, also Amazon as well. And still waiting for the approval for Barnes and Noble and Books A Million. So you'll be able to get that book there at those different locations as well. And again, Kev, it was a great honor to be able to share this adventure with you, and I appreciate you taking your time out for this. And I have learned a lot, and one of my key takeaways is the LMV, leadership market value. I really like that concept, and I like that ideology that you gave about what it means. And again, I'm very appreciative to be able to share this moment with you. And for all the listeners out there, I'll leave you with this statement. If you can see it, you can achieve it. If you can see it, you can achieve it. What that means if you can visualize it, you can create a plan to achieve it. Anything you want to achieve. And it's all up to you. If anything is to be in life, it starts with you. Again, Kev, thank you for the opportunity.
Brother, huge kudos. So as we take it out, by the way, I changed music just for you. I had something a little more romantic for the last interview. I wouldn't say romantic, a little more emotional. That's a better word to use.
Right.
but brother, I appreciate you. And for the listeners, listen, there's folks like me. There's folks like Larry out there. There's lots of folks. And you know what they're doing? They're creating a community of care the same way we created a community of consumption. Don't overlook those folks who care, who've been through the rough stuff, laying a foundation for you. And yeah, we're out from KJ Studios.